Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cop Council. How are we all? Hopefully, all of you are on a fantastic day, wherever you are around the world. And welcome back to a very, very special video for you guys today. Of course, we do have a very special guest in James Pearce from The Athletic. James, how are you? Hopefully, you're having a good day.
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks. Yeah, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you, mate. Of course, guys, get your comments in. We may go through a couple if you guys have any questions for James and just certain situations around the football club at the minute. James, I'll kickstart kickstart things off in asking about obviously the new manager, 𝗍𝗄 Slot. Of course, it's been a couple of days now of pre-season under the new manager. Of course, you was there a couple of days ago in the press conference with the new manager and the new, of course, sporting director. How was the feelings around the football club at the minute with, of course, the new manager coming in, with the players as well interacting with the new manager? Was there a positive feeling around the press conference, or what was the general feeling around on that day particularly?
Yeah, I would 100% say positive. Yeah, I was impressed by 𝗍𝗄 Slot. Obviously, easily it would be understandable if it was a bit daunting, because he's taken on the biggest challenge of his life, trying to succeed Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. But I thought he was really impressive. I thought there weren't any kind of like quotes that made you think, wow, we'll still be talking about that in 5 or 6 years' time. No massively bold promises, but I thought he just looked really comfortable in his own skin, like relaxed, and felt like he belonged. I thought he struck a really like good balance between kind of being respectful to the past and respectful to Klopp, but also clearly wanting to put his own stamp on things. So and certainly the feedback I've had from people at the club who have, obviously still in the process of really getting to know him, but have started to get that process, as he's made a really, really good impression on people. So, so yeah, I thought it's, really not an easy summer at all when you think how problematic it's going to be kind of putting everything into place if you're Slot, when you've got so many of your key players not coming back till such a later point in pre-season. But in terms of what he has been able to do with the players that are there at the minute, all the feedback so far has been excellent.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think you are right in that sense. I think he doesn't have his, well, probably main 11 until probably a week before the season starts. So that's not a great introduction into things, you would think. But I think you are right in the sense that it was a very positive press conference. I think the only newsworthy situation was when I think Chris from Redmen asked about formations, and of course everyone lost their minds a bit on that. But I think obviously he did almost slip up in terms of appointments. I know that today there's been some news concerning, of course, obviously a former Everton player in Johnny Heitinga, I think it is. I think his name is. But what's the situation around that at the moment? Is there any progression in terms of talks? Because I know Liverpool have had discussions with him, and of course he's highly rated. I think he's been through the academies of Ajax, and of course West Ham very much wanted to keep hold of him. But what's the current situation with him joining 𝗍𝗄 Slot's team?
Yeah, well, those talks with Heitinga are ongoing. I was told earlier on today he was one of a number of candidates under consideration for that role. He is highly regarded as a coach. You rattled off there where he's coached previously. And, he was obviously one of the staff that left West Ham when David Moyes lost his job at the end of the season. So he's obviously been looking around, trying to pick the right next challenge for him. So it'll be interesting to see whether that gets finalised. Heitinga has come out in Holland and been quoted and admitted that those talks with Liverpool are ongoing. And then, of course, the other interesting one today was this appointment of Aaron Briggs as elite development coach, which of course is 𝗧𝗵𝘁𝗄𝗧's old job. And that's such a key link between the academy and the first team setup. And Briggs is someone, again, pretty impressive CV when you look. I think he worked for Man City in all kinds of roles for nearly a decade, worked for Monaco, worked for Wolfsburg. He was assistant manager there until March. And a number of Premier League clubs have been after him. So, yeah, it's starting to come together, I think, in terms of not far off the kind of the full complement in terms of the backroom setup.
Yeah, no, I think Liverpool are very much getting a healthy backroom team together. I think, as you just mentioned, I think Arsenal tried to sign him back in 2019. I think Manchester City rejected that very quickly. But I think overall, I think plenty of Liverpool supporters have said it. When Jurgen Klopp announced he was going to be stepping down back in January, that I think a lot of people were very concerned for the future. But I think the future obviously is very brighter with the backroom team that has been appointed at Liverpool. I think that the structure has been very well put for the next foundation then for Liverpool. But would you agree? Of course, obviously we know pre-season is only just started. Of course, we know that I think Richard Hughes said it perfectly, that they're going to take a look at the whole squad at the moment as well. I think again, obviously there's players that are coming back daily, but is there anyone at the minute that has come back and already there's words coming out again they're having a good time at the club, and obviously Fabio Carvalho has come back, obviously 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 has just come back as well. Is there any particular player that's shined for a short space of time?
Yeah, I think you'd certainly put 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 in that category. I was speaking to people earlier on today who said that Slot and his staff have been hugely impressed by him. Of course, someone I think most people probably expected him to move on quite quickly this summer. Having spent last season on loan at Mainz, you kind of looked at it and you thought, well, is he really ready to step up? Of course, Liverpool, are assessing potential options in the market defensively, having lost 𝗟𝗵𝘁 with the end of his Liverpool career. But yeah, he was, he seems to certainly come back in fantastic shape fitness-wise. He won the kind of the running testing. I think it was the 6-minute race that they did on over the weekend, that he came out in top on that in terms of registering the highest average speed. But more than that, I think that they feel that like technically he's gone to the next level from playing every week in the Bundesliga pretty much last season, and they've already knocked back some offers from Mainz, from Wolfsburg. There's quite recent there's interest as well from PSV Eindhoven. But yeah, I think the word at the minute is that Slot intends to give Van den Berg an opportunity on the Tour of America that's coming up, because I think that makes perfect sense as well. Not least because when you look at it, Van Dijk, Joe Gomez, Konaté, with them going deep into the Euros, we're not going to see them probably until August. So yeah, it's if you're Van den Berg, what a fantastic opportunity that is to try and prove that you can still make it at Liverpool. So I think it'd be interesting to see what happens on that one. I mean, Liverpool, I think, have put quite an ambitious kind of valuation on him. I think £20 million. I'd be really surprised if someone was prepared to offer that. If they did, then it may well be that all parties decide, well, actually, that's one that makes sense to shake hands and move on. But at the minute, all the signs are that he will be given chances in the friendlies coming up.
Yeah, I think that's also huge. I think, again, having him, I think obviously in training you can get an idea of a player, but once they start and you can see them actually in 90 minutes, I think that's actually a good thing. Was the bids from the clubs in question, were they anywhere near the valuation, or were they miles off?
No, I wasn't able to get exact numbers on them. I was told that even with all the various add-ons, you were looking at around half of what Liverpool value him at. So you're talking about in the region of 10 million at absolute most, with the add-ons that may well, quite often the case with offers aren't particularly achievable. So no, I didn't get the impression that either of those offers were even seriously considered. I mean, the other one that kind of has moved a bit in recent days was Trabzonspor being after Nat Phillips, another centre back. Different situation, of course, with Nat, because he's only got 1 year left on his contract, and at the age of 27, he's much further down the road career-wise than Sepp. So you know, I don't think anyone thinks that Nat Phillips will still be a Liverpool player come the end of August. But again, you know, Liverpool value him at kind of £8 to £10 million. Trabzonspor are only willing to go up to 4, I think, with the add-ons included in that. But there's been lots of interest in him from various clubs in the Championship, including Burnley. You know, he had a very good time under Scott Parker previously at Bournemouth when he helped them win promotion. So yeah, but again, I think it's with Nat as well at the minute. I think it's a case of just taking his time to weigh up all the options that are out there and then decide what's best for him.
Yeah, 100%. I think is a loan totally off for Liverpool in the Nat Phillips situation, or is it?
Yeah, it definitely won't be a loan. Only because obviously, you know, if you loan him out now, you effectively
lose him on
him
a
free next summer. So yeah, it will be a permanent.
Yeah, 100%. Again, we were speaking about outgoings. I think obviously today in the Liverpool world, I think everyone's speaking about a certain youngster in Rio Inguma, I think it is. Again, I could be wrong with my pronunciation, so I do apologise for that. But it looks like he will be joining Liverpool from Chelsea for an historic deal. Is there any word on that as of yet from Liverpool, or are they just waiting to get it over the line and then speak about it?
Yeah, well, Liverpool won't. They have a policy of not commenting on deals involving kids who are as young as that. I've spoken to other people since, not connected with the club, who have told me that they do expect him to move to Liverpool. So it looks like that will materialise. Yeah, like probably most people, I was scratching around trying to find a bit of footage of him, and you obviously got to be a bit cautious with you know, any 2-minute montage that you watch, but he looks very, very gifted, doesn't he? And I think just seeing a bit of the reaction from you know, Chelsea people connected with Chelsea on social media that, you know, seem gutted at the prospect of losing him. It looks like an exciting one. And I think if it does that 100% go through, I think as well, it just shows what an attractive proposition Liverpool are to young players. And I think that's part of Klopp's legacy, because, you know, it's when you contrast the way that Liverpool and Chelsea, you know, go about things. You know, you look at Chelsea with, you know, what is it, over £1 billion that they've spent on almost stockpiling talent. You know, that it's bound to have an impact, isn't it, on kids looking at it and thinking, well, where is the pathway? Well, you know, you look at Liverpool, and of course, you know, probably the League Cup final. And I know to a degree the League Cup final was forced on Klopp because of the absence of other players, but there were so many other moments last season where he could have played safe and he didn't. You know, you think of right from Quansah making his debut away at Newcastle when we were down to 10 men already. And, you know, you look at, you know, people, probably myself included at times, have called for a bit more to be done in the transfer market. Yet when you don't have, you know, a real big squad of senior players, it does create space for those youngsters to come through. And we saw that, you know, Quansah and probably Conor Bradley were the two best examples of that last season. So yeah, really positive. I think the fact if like I said, as expected, it does go through, the fact that he's decided that Liverpool is the best place to continue his development, because you know, an England youth international and someone who clearly people that have watched him closely at youth level, both for club and you know, and for England, think you know, he's got a huge amount of potential.
Yeah, no, I think just quickly going through, I think his resume again, I think he's already played for the under-21s at Chelsea. I think he was already in team training with the first team at Chelsea as well. But I think you are right in the sense when you do look at Liverpool and when you look at Chelsea, there is a clear difference between the two clubs, where for Liverpool, again, even the likes of Lewis Kumos, again, I think even Jadon Danns, I think they've been able to give him the opportunity throughout the season, even in FA Cup games and League Cup games. Yeah. They were given plenty of opportunities to shine. I think he has looked at it and gone, oh, there might be a clear path for me to get to the first team. And I think for me, I don't know whether about you, but this shows a clear indication of kind of like the old system back, if that makes any sense, with obviously Michael Edwards back at the football club, and Liverpool very much looking more into youth, getting the best youth talent in the football clubs, rather than spending, we could end up spending 80-90 million on a player that's well known, when we could end up getting a kid that develops into the next best potential winger of England.
Yeah. Well, I think that was one of the reasons as well why Liverpool went for 𝗧𝗏, because he does have a track record of putting his faith in youth and developing young players. Of course, at Feyenoord, it wasn't as if he had a blank checkbook to go out and buy whatever he wanted. He had to bring players through, and he proved very, very adept at doing that. And kind of exceeded expectations with the resources he did have in comparison to some of the rivals that he was up against in the Netherlands. So that's a big part of the kind of the new structure they've built, with of course Michael Edwards at the top of it as FSG CEO of football, and then of course Richard Hughes as sporting director, Julian Ward as technical director. There's a big focus on ensuring that Klopp may have gone and that was the end of an era, but it's not going to change the way that they want the academy to operate, because that is exactly the way it should be, like it was last season. You should always look within for solutions before you look outside the club. And I know from when I was up at the academy, throughout last season, it just energizes everyone when you have a club set up like that, because it gives people hope, and it makes the life so much easier for the coaches and for Alex Inglethorpe. The fact that you're not just saying stuff to these kids, you're able to back it up with, well, look at James McConnell, look at Kumas, look at Dans, So it's that is 100% something we'll see continue this season. And of course there's kind of two strands to it, because you want to bring through your own, and Liverpool have done that very well in recent years. When you look at some of the kids who have been there, right from pre-academy, you think, doing an interview, I did an interview with 𝗟𝗶𝘃𝗲𝗿 last season, and I think he was 5 years old when he was going to like Liverpool's development centre in Warrington before he came into Kirby. And even someone like Tyler Morton, I think, has been at Liverpool since he was 5 or 6 years of age. But of course, you also have to be shrewd and clever and alert and have a good network to try and pick people up along the way, especially when you get through the ranks and you think, well, actually there is a gap here for another wide attacker or for another midfielder or whatever. And clearly this kid from Chelsea is one they've looked at and gone, well, actually, this could complement what we've got already. And of course, when you're able to get them in, when he's still only 15 years of age before he becomes a scholar, you're not really looking at too much as well in the way of compensation.
Yeah, 100%. Again, I'm very much looking forward to seeing whether or not he'll be introduced into the first team this season, if at all. But I will go away slightly. Of course, sticking on the transfer path, of course, we've already had kind of a transfer deadline day at the end of June, with the whole PSR situation around the Premier League, and obviously the one involving Liverpool and the news story around it was Anthony Gordon. And I very much wanted to ask you about this, because again, obviously a load of people got excited over the idea of signing Anthony Gordon and getting him to Liverpool. Of course, we found out that obviously it would have took a very complex deal to get him to Anfield. But speaking of Gordon, and obviously the whole situation around it was, according to Newcastle sources, was stopped because of 𝗟𝗶𝘃𝗃𝗲𝗿 being involved with the deal. Was that Liverpool that quickly said no and the deal was done, or was it another player was involved? Because I believe Joe Gomez's name even got mentioned in conversations. Was it just a clear no once the Liverpool player was being spoken about going to Newcastle, or was it a bit of conversation there around Gordon and around that tyre deal?
Well, the way I understand it is, that it was the contact was initiated by Newcastle, because of course, as we all know, they were desperate to raise funds by the end of June. I think it was in the region of £60 million they had to find to avoid the very, very real prospect of a points deduction if they hadn't brought in that money. So of course they were they were pretty much open to anything. But you know, the way I was told it was that, you know, Liverpool, once they got once they were quoted a figure for Gordon, that was not seriously considered. Now I don't know exactly what that figure was, but clearly Liverpool felt it was way beyond their own valuation of Gordon, who they do admire. There's no doubt about that. You know, of course, he was at Liverpool as a kid. I think released at the age of 11 before he went to Everton. And I've got to be honest, when he went to Newcastle, I thought Newcastle had overpaid for him, but he's really kicked on. I thought he was brilliant last season. So I can understand why Liverpool would rate him so highly. And then, of course, you're right. That I don't the Joe Gomez one, I don't know anything about. That's certainly not something that his name didn't come up in the conversations I had with people. But yeah, Newcastle asked, they would have been prepared to take money plus Kwanzaa. But again, that was just an absolute
straight no.
Yeah. I mean, that just would be completely nonsensical, because, you know, he was an absolute revelation last season, having broken into the senior ranks. And, you know, let's not forget, he ended the season as Van Dijk's first choice partner on merit, keeping Konaté out of the team, and rightly so, because he was in the better form of the two. So yeah, there's no chance Liverpool would, you know, they didn't and they won't consider offloading Kwanzaa, no chance. And then, of course, you know, Newcastle moved on because, you know, I think they ended up selling Elliot Anderson, didn't they, and 𝗵𝗁, and raised that money. So, I mean, common sense probably says I'd be surprised if it was kind of rekindled, because obviously Newcastle now, different financial year, they're not under the same kind of pressures to sell. But, you know, never say never. When we know Liverpool rate him highly, and we know that Gordon is a boyhood Liverpool fan, very close friends with Curtis Jones, and you know, I'm sure he, you know, would have loved the idea of coming back to Liverpool. But at the minute, there just isn't a vacancy in the squad. That's the other thing. You know, I think, as well as the valuation being too high, it's, you know, Liverpool are actually really well stocked on that left-hand side when you look at all the options that Arne Slot has got. And then there's kind of a bit of a question mark, isn't there, still ongoing over Diaz? Like, I think...
And that was my next question to you, is there a possibility that Lucho could be sold?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you have to, you have to kind of link the two, just because there quite clearly is a correlation there, because, you know, if Diaz was to go, then you think, well, you know, Gordon would be a really good quality replacement. And you know, there was a lot. I think where with Diaz, there's been a lot of noise around him, hasn't there, in terms of potentially looking to move on. I know he came out publicly, didn't he, and said, "No, I'm very happy where I am." But I don't know. I wondered whether part of that is wanting a new contract at Liverpool, because obviously he's still on the same deal that he had when he first joined from Porto. You know, I think Barcelona have probably done what Barcelona do in terms of trying to unsettle a player at times. But I think there's big doubts whether Barcelona could afford him. You know, it's with their financial situation, because Liverpool, without a shadow of a doubt, would want a decent profit on, what was it, the 50 million they paid for him. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens on that one. I mean, at the minute, Slot is planning for the new season with Diaz on board, and you know, he's obviously doing well with Colombia at the Copa America at the minute. But yeah, he's probably the only one in terms of, I think there was a stage, wasn't there, probably towards the back end of the season, where you thought, well, I wonder what's going to happen with Salah, Nunez and Diaz. You know, there was kind of a certain amount of noise surrounding all three of them in terms of their futures. And I think it's become pretty apparent over time that, you know, I don't see Salah going anywhere this summer. I certainly don't see Nunez going anywhere this summer. But there is still probably that one question mark next to Diaz.
I think, just going from Slot's comments, I think he's very much looking forward to working with Nunez. I think again, he spoke, I think, a couple of days ago on it, which again, I'm very looking forward to seeing how he differs from Jurgen in that sense. I don't know if you're in the same ilk, where again, we know it's more or less going to stay the same, the same philosophy, the same style, but just different tweaks within the team. And I think Darwin might be a positive impact on that. Again, I know second half of the season he was not starting week in, week out, but you would assume that, judging from, again, the stories that's come out so far about Slot, liking Núñez in that sense, he would be the starting 9 for Liverpool for next season.
Yeah, I think as well. I think to me it just wouldn't have made sense to offload Núñez this summer, where for a start, that's just in terms of like the brutal finances of it. You think, well, to offload Núñez this summer would have involved taking a big hit on what you paid for him, and I think that you would have always had that nagging sense of like, maybe Slot could have got more out of him. And we did a big article about him on The Athletic last weekend, looking at different areas of his game and talking to former Liverpool strikers about him. And it's, you do, I think it was John Aldridge in the piece said, sometimes it, like a new voice, just a few different ideas, like a few different training drills can just like unlock something. And, and not to say that Klopp didn't do a good job with him, because I think, Klopp is an expert man manager, one of his greatest strengths. But, sometimes just a change can be good, because he did massively lose his way in the second half of the season. I mean, it kind of coincided with Liverpool's season, petering out really. I think, what was it, 1 goal in his last 13 appearances of the season, lost his starting spot to 𝗟𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗃, and you could see the frustration on his face. And but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how Slot can get more out of him. I mean, he wasn't the only one, was he? I think you'd probably, 𝗧𝗿𝗵𝘁𝗵, after a fantastic first half of the season, really struggled in the second half of the season. I think Slot would look upon him in a similar category in terms of thinking, well, he's another big money signing who's still young in football in terms, and I should be able to get more out of him than we saw from 𝗧𝗿𝗵𝘁𝗵 in the second half of the season. Same with Konaté, really. Konaté is an elite centre-back who, for whatever reasons, whether it was fitness, form, confidence, maybe a combination, kind of, again, completely lost his way. So I think I'd almost like chuck those 3 in together in terms of, like elite players who kind of just fell away last season. But I think I'd expect all 3 of them to be really important under Slot.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree with you on that. Well, speaking of again important players under Slot, and obviously previous to Jurgen, I know that Richard Hughes mentioned it briefly in terms of contract extensions with certain individual players. Now we know obviously the big 3 going into next year that will be out of a contract is, of course, Trent, Virgil, and Mo. Of course, that's the begging question of when will they sign the new deals, but of course, I know that they said that they're going to give them time, obviously, to come back, and obviously then there will be conversations that you would assume with all 3 players. Is there any indication that there is a one prioritizing over another because they're concerned that like, for example, like a Trent going to Real Madrid, obviously, but Jude, obviously we all know that story, like Liverpool trying to persuade Jude, when now it could be a bit of reverse on that situation. Is there any of the 3 or any contracts in particular that's a priority at the minute? Because I know, even like speaking on, we spoke on youth, I think Bobby Clark's being given a new contract as well. So is there any priority at the minute from Liverpool side to a particular player?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I mean, I think Liverpool have remained very tight-lipped on those contract discussions. I know, going back a couple of months now, Richard Hughes was making a point of kind of ringing round and introducing himself to agents and Liverpool players, and just really kind of creating that initial rapport, really, with a view to obviously sitting down properly at a later date. But I mean, common sense has to tell you that Trent Alexander-Arnold, for me, has to be the priority. I'd be amazed. You probably maybe wouldn't get anyone maybe admitting that, but it was just because of what you talked about there with his age, his profile, his skill set, and the fact that yes, I'd be absolutely amazed if Real Madrid weren't interested in, what club in the
Who
world
wouldn't be?
wouldn't want Trent Alexander-Arnold on a free in the summer of 2025. It's, and it has to be resolved. I think, I really hope we're not kind of sat here in the middle of August going into the Premier League season and it's still rumbling on, and where are discussions up to and all the rest of it, because I think Trent Alexander-Arnold has to be the future of Liverpool. He was given the vice captaincy as succession planning, really, in terms of grooming him for the top job, and we certainly don't like the idea of him moving on. So it's unthinkable, isn't it? So yeah. I think it's a very different scenario, that one to the other two, because I think it's more understandable with Van Dijk and Salah for it to get to this point, because of their age, and I think they're the two highest earners in the club, Salah and Van Dijk. So there's bound to be you're bound to be thinking, well, hang on a minute, what's Van Dijk just turned 33? Is it? Is
33? Just turned 33 today.
You think, well, I can understand why you wouldn't be in a massive rush to just dish out another 2-3 year extension or whatever, but Trent is a whole different scenario for me. With what he's achieved already and what he's got left in the tank. I think Van Dijk, I think he will sign. He absolutely loves being at Liverpool. He loves being the captain. He's excited about the new era under Slot. But of course, until these terms have been agreed, you can't take anything for granted. But I've that's always been my feeling, that Van Dijk is an easier one than Salah, because again, I think with Salah a lot will come down to does he want to go to Saudi Arabia in 2025? I think the messages from the Saudi Pro League at the back end of the season were that we don't think he's obtainable this summer, but maybe in 2025, because of course, as a free agent, I mean, the figures being banded around were absolutely crazy last year when Liverpool rejected that offer. So imagine the salary if there was no transfer fee involved. So, but I still cling to the hope that Salah, and his kind of that burning ambition and competitive edge to want to do it at the top level. I still hope that he doesn't decide that the time's right next year to go to Saudi, because I think he could go to Saudi in 2, 3, 4 years time and probably still light that league up. So I hope he sticks around for a few years.
Do you think it's more with, I know you said again the priority more or less should be Trent, and obviously Virgil's a very easy situation because again it is love for Liverpool, but do you think with Mo it's more maybe even based on team performance? With next season you'll see like for a year how it's like under Arne Slot, and then do you think a decision will be made, in your opinion, do you reckon it'll be made in the season, or do you think it'll be until the end and then Liverpool and Mo might make their own decision?
I mean, I think kind of recent history tells us that if it's not done by like the turn of the year, then it's very rare that people then end up re-signing. I remember being in press conferences and asking Klopp about Roberto Firmino's situation, and even in the second half of the season it was like, oh, we want him to stay, but you're like, well, you're now at that point where once you get to January and suddenly these players can sign pre-contract agreements with overseas clubs, I think the pendulum swings a fair bit that way in terms of an exit being likely. Same with Wijnaldum. If you remember, the second half of the season with Wijnaldum, it was still talk about will he or won't he, but it was like,
that was infuriating.
Yeah, I can't even think. I mean, I'm sure someone will tell me that there is an example, but I genuinely can't think of one Liverpool related where someone who was out of contract, like a reasonably high profile player, then signed the contract in his last few months that deal to stay. 𝗵𝗁𝘁 Can was another one, wasn't he? In terms of will he, won't he? Well, no, he won't. He's off. So yeah, I think that's why the next few months are huge for that. I mean, obviously everyone's kind of waiting and wanting to hear who's going to be, the first signings of the Slot era. But I think you could make a very strong case for, a couple of contract renewals being probably
Their
even
signings.
more bringing anyone else in. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking lastly then on signings for the summer, I know that there's been conversation saying that it's more about quality over quantity this summer. And I know there's been different reports, obviously, throughout the summer speaking about priority and where is the priority for Liverpool, because one report suggesting that it's wingers, other reports are saying it's centre-halves. What is your information at the minute for Liverpool? Is it where is the priority for Liverpool going into the summer?
Well, my understanding of it is that, and this has been the case for a while, and I think Slot and Hughes speaking publicly last week pretty much backed that up, was that Slot wants a period of time to fully assess what he's got, and that it's you can watch all the games you want on DVD and training sessions like he has done, but nothing beats actually being out on the grass with these players and getting to know them, find out what makes them tick, and just whether they can adapt to what he wants from them. So yeah, I'd be lying if I said to you, the priority is a centre back or the priority is a fullback or whatever, because I just, that is not how it's been explained to me. And of course, people then say, well, for weeks and weeks have been linked with so many players. And of course, people cling to rumors, but pretty much every rumor there's been that I've checked out, I've been told, it's just nonsense. It's agent talk. It's it's probably not been as bad the last week or so, but there was that period where one day it was Nico Williams is coming, then it was Calafiori, the Italian centre half, and each time you check out these things, you're told there's nothing in it. There's literally nothing in it. And I think I think that does go back to they want to just assess what they've got. I think there's a feeling as well that whenever there's major tournaments, that always has an impact. There isn't much business going on around the Premier League. You mentioned earlier, some clubs being in that mad dash by the end of June. It was only clubs desperately trying not to get points deductions who were doing business. And some eyebrows raised at some of those deals. So yeah, I think it will be later on in the summer when we see things develop. And I still think you look at that centre back position, and talked about 𝗧𝗵𝘃𝗵𝗃 before. Who knows? He might step up and shine and prove that he can be one of the senior centre backs next season. If not, then Liverpool are clearly going to have to strengthen in that department, because I don't see how you could possibly just go into the season with Van Dijk, Gomez, Konaté, and Quansah, because you look at Konaté's fitness record, and of course Gomez was used a lot last season as a kind of a fill-in on left back and right back. So and the number 6 position, like a lot of fans, I look at it and think, Liverpool surely have to go and strengthen in that position, because Endo, I thought, exceeded expectations last season in terms of how well he did, but it's a big ask to expect him to play 40 odd games. But then you've got that question mark of what kind of role is 𝗵𝗵𝘁𝗵 going to have, and again we all hope that he will be able to put his injury issues behind him and massively kick on, but we don't know at the minute. So I think pre-season is going to kind of tell us a lot more about where the gaps clearly are. And yeah, my colleague David Ornstein at The Athletic has reported a few times that Liverpool were looking to bolster, the top line in terms of a wide attacker, which again, I think someone who could provide some cover for Salah on the right-hand side would make perfect sense. And And then you've got that dynamic with the goalkeeping situation where, Liverpool at the minute are planning with Kelleher on board for the season ahead. But is someone going to come along and test that resolve? Because I did an interview with 𝗲𝗄𝗃 towards the end of the season where he said, I'm desperate to be a number one. I really don't want to go back to warming the bench, and I would love to be the number one at Liverpool, but I'm realistic that I'm trying to get past the best goalkeeper in world football. So, there's a lot up in the air at the minute. It's in an ideal world, you want your business done early, and then you're all set for pre-season. But that, for loads and loads of different factors, that just wasn't realistic this time around.
Yeah, 100%. Well, quickly asking you about one particular player. I know your colleague David Ornstein has mentioned Lenny Yoro from Lille, and probably guessed already the answer to this. But is it the case that Liverpool are just lurking behind Real Madrid, and if there is any signs of encouragement, Liverpool will grasp onto it, or is it? It's more or less just wait and see what Real Madrid do.
Well, yeah, I think there's a kind of acceptance that Madrid had put a lot of groundwork in on this one, and of course, you've got the 𝗵𝗁𝘁𝗵𝗃 factor as well, with him going there, and so I think there's just that dose of realism that you're probably not gonna suddenly become Yoro's absolute first choice. But it was described to me as, with someone of his profile, with his talent, his age, and the fact that he's only got a year left on his contract, you'd be stupid not to at least try, and to try and make sure that if for whatever reason Real Madrid can't do the deal financially, that you're the next one in line in terms of the clubs that are after him. So that's the kind of situation with Yoro. It's Liverpool expect him to join Real Madrid, but if it doesn't happen, then I'd expect them to make sure that they are right there to try and swoop.
Yeah, 100%. I think, as we've said it plenty in this stream, I think that again August will be a very busy month for Liverpool, with ins and out as well. I'm going to quickly ask a few questions from the people as well. Thank you, Lig, for commenting as well. Question for James: do you believe Darwin Núñez is a make or break season for him?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, just because I think what we talked about before in terms of the new manager coming in, third season at Liverpool. What has he just turned 25? I think if you sat here in 12 months going, oh, should he get another? If it had been hit or miss again, I think you would be thinking, well, actually, come on, it's not going to happen, because there's so much potential there, and as we saw, on a number of occasions last season, capable of the absolute brilliance, but far too often, isn't able to do the real simple things. Yet, 18 goals and I think with 13 assists, wasn't it, in all comps? They're pretty respectable numbers, but he is just incredibly frustrating, because with how many great positions he gets himself into, those numbers should be so much better. So yeah, I think that's a fair comment.
I think if you looked at Darwin Núñez and you went and you looked at those stats and you go, oh, that's very respectful, but then you actually watch him, it is very frustrating. We love him for it, and that's the annoying part as well. Thank you, Doug, for your question as well. Where is Cody Gakpo's best position, James? That question for you.
Yeah, I think left side of the front three. I think we've seen that at the Euros, and it's been one of the real positives, actually. I think sometimes when players go away on international duty at tournaments and stuff, you sometimes, especially when your club head on, you're kind of thinking, well, you almost like, well, especially if someone goes away and they hardly play, you think of someone like Konaté, he might be coming back kind of, and you're even needing to lift his chin off the floor, especially having had a tough end to the season at Liverpool. But with someone like Gakpo, he's absolutely flourished, and I think that can only help Liverpool. I felt really sorry for him last season, because I thought even he went through some tough periods, but he was also shifted around an awful lot. When you think that there was that early part of the season where he was playing like centre midfield, really as a number 8, and playing then through the middle, playing out wide at times. He was you know, he almost became the kind of, well, you know, you can just do a job here and there, but you haven't really got a set role, and you know, you're not really in our strongest team. But he was brilliant back end of the season, and I'm looking forward to seeing him play. And you know, I still think there'll be times when we see him through the middle as well. But yeah, I do like the idea of him left and Núñez through the middle.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think, again, you've seen so far in this European competition how good he's been on the left, and I think he's definitely up there for player of the tournament. I think for me, it's between him and Fabian Ruiz at the minute. I don't know about you. Do you have a specific player that you've been watching at the Euros that you've been enjoying from any particular nation?
No, not massively. No, I mean, I would definitely put Gsagpå in the conversation for that at the minute, because yeah, he's been absolutely key for the Netherlands. You know, even the other night against Turkey, you know, you look at his involvement in the goals. You know, I think if I was picking one now, then Gsagpå would be my player of the tournament.
Yeah, 100% right. Last question. Anyway, so guys, thank you for commenting as well. Jack, thank you for commenting. Says James, what has been one of your best highlights of covering Liverpool over your career in media so far that stands out for you in certain player interview or match day experience?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, probably game wise, my favourite one would have to be the Champions League final in Madrid in 2019, just because I knew it was going to be my last game working for the Liverpool Echo after 14 years, and I hadn't. It was a kind of a bit of a secret at the time, but I knew I'd be having to hand in a notice the week after, and I just thought, you know, after so long at the Echo and having not had a massive amount of success to write about during that period relative to Liverpool's history. That was incredible to be able to think, well, my last game covering Liverpool for the Echo was to write about Liverpool winning the European Cup for the 6th time. Interview wise, would probably be doing the, you know, Steven Gerrard's kind of first interview after he decided to leave Liverpool, when he was leaving to go to LA Galaxy. I always loved interviewing Gerrard, just so brutally honest, and you know, always gives like fantastic answers as a player, and, you know, wore his heart on his sleeve. And so it would, yeah, he'd probably be that one. And then match day experiences, yeah, I mean, there's been some, you know, I remember not long after I started at the Echo, like Diego Maradona walking up the stairs in the old main, from the main stand, old reception, up the stairs to the press box, and it was like, oh my God, there's Diego Maradona. And like, you know, a few years after, like Pele was there as well. So yeah, those are the moments that you just think, yeah, that's a pretty special place to be at that particular time. And yeah, it definitely beats having a real job.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much for coming on, James. I do very much appreciate it. Thank you to everyone in the chat as well for taking in and listening to the information. Anyway, of course, James, is there anything coming up on the Athletic for anyone to go and check out from you?
Yeah, like I said, there's a few pieces on the last few days, from, you know, the piece on Darwin Núñez and his form at the Copa America, and you know, my colleague Greg Evans has written a piece that went up today on Diaz, and of course he's another one having a decent tournament over in North America. And then, you know, as the week progresses, I think we're going to be looking more at you know, the kind of, you know, the challenge of getting a team up to speed when you've got players coming back at all different points, and in particular a focus on Ruben Peters, and kind of, you know, especially when you think Liverpool suffered so much from injuries last season, you know, and he's going to be a key man in terms of trying to make sure that, you know, the load is right on players in terms of not overburdening them, but making sure they've got the required kind of basis for the campaign ahead. So yeah, it's there'll be plenty coming up, and as we said, you know, I'm sure we'll get some clarity as well in the next couple of days on whether Johnny Heitinga is going to be part of that new setup as well. So So yeah, it's I'm off to America on the pre-season tour in a couple of weeks. So there's never a shortage of things to write about where Liverpool are concerned.
No, 100%. But thank you very much for coming on as well, guys. If you'd like James on in the future, then please do let us know in the comments, because it has been an absolute blast. We've been going for 50 minutes and it hasn't felt like it neither. But guys, if you are new around here, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and yeah, we'll definitely see you tomorrow for another show. But I've been Connor from the Cop Council. We see you guys tomorrow. Ta-ra.